At the risk of sounding as if I'm dating myself, I'm going to sit here and say I sound like a broken record today. Now, if you're under a certain age, you don't know what a broken record is or what that phrase means, but it means I'm repeating myself a lot over and we had these things years ago in prehistory called records. You'd put them on a turntable, and if they had a scratch on them, you'd hear this sound go over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it was irritating and usually meant you had to go buy a new record, which was even more frustrating because when you were a kid, these things, they weren't cheap. But when I say we have a busy program ahead today, that's when I sound like a broken record. But until we get through primary season, I have a lot of candidates coming in over the next couple of weeks. And in fact, Rich Wills will be joining us about 8:20 this morning, longtime state representative and retired from the Idaho State Police as well. Drove all the way down from Glens Ferry this morning. We'll see him about 8:20. Rich is in a primary, and his opponent was on a few weeks ago. And so what we're trying to do is whenever someone drops me a line and says, I'd like to be on the air, we get them on the air. And then we make an effort to bring the opponent in as well. So everyone gets a little equal time in this situation. Keep in mind, however, we are almost to the middle of April now. Oh, tax days this week. Oh, but we're almost to the middle of April, and the primary is coming up on May 17th, and I have 77 minutes of actual talk time per radio show. So if people out there have brought this up in past races, if you think you're going to call me at the last minute and make it on the air, or email me at the last minute, uh, good luck, because we could be all booked up. And some days we actually like to reserve a little time to talk about other things that are at the top of the news, which is why the story is called, or the show is called Top Story. We'll also talk to Randy Staples a little later this hour as well from Idaho Weekly Briefing. He has a great column that you may have seen over the weekend. He has a great column out, and it deals with water resources, especially in southern Idaho. This will be a banner year, at least for now. It looks as if it's going to be a banner year for water usage, which is not very common lately. 9 minutes after 8 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. That is an environmental issue. And speaking of environmental issues, I saw something on the AP wire this morning, and I had to share some details on this. I read the AP wire copy, which was only about one paragraph, decided to do a little more searching through the miracle of Google, and I found a story as well from the Elko Daily Free Press. But this also impacts southern Idaho. Associated Press reports this. Rural Nevadans suing to block the Obama White House's sage grouse protection plan say a trail of internal government documents that they cite in a new federal court filing shows politics was the driving force behind a predetermined policy that flies in the face of federal experts' own best science. The latest motion seeks to void the protections that have severely restricted, developed, and in some cases made off limits of millions of acres of federal land across 10 western states, including Idaho and Utah and Nevada. So sage grouse is going to be a big story, ongoing story for a long, long time. And this comes from the Elko Daily Free Press, which I'm sure would be the seed of the story for AP. Even if a judge hands Attorney General Adam Laxalt, and he's Paul Laxalt's son, a summary judgment concerning a case of sage grouse and land use, it won't be the end of the county's lawsuit over the issue. Laxalt claims the Department of Interior officials who called themselves Grouseketeers illegally met with environmental groups after the agency's public comment period ended. Now, can you imagine bureaucrats actually doing that? Can you imagine federal bureaucrats? I mean, good golly, they're usually so squeaky clean and honest. County Commissioner Rex Stenninger asked Chief Civil District Attorney Kristen McQuarrie what the significance would be of a summary judgment on the lawsuit over the sage grouse. Now, that's, as I say, coming out of Elko County, which geographically is a massive, massive place. And here's a quote. This is from his question. Is that routine to file a motion for a summary judgment, or is that an indication that they think they have a real strong hand? And she replied, kind of both. And Assistant County Manager Randy Brown said he thinks Laxalt is keying in on the same things we did for our lawsuit. So you've got rural Elko County, which is filing a lawsuit, and then you've got a lawsuit filed against the federal government on these sage grouse protections as well at the state level. Commissioner Cliff Eklund said if the judge awarded the summary judgment in favor of the state and counties, would that eliminate the need for the lawsuit? McQuarrie said no. She said it could be appealed to the next level. It's going to be the end, even if the judge rules 100% in the AG's favor, she said. So I've got a lot of detail on this, but I'm telling you right now, it appears that there are people inside the federal government who will lie to get what they want. And at the direction of the Obama White House, and severely restrict land usage here in the western United States, which seems to be one of the biggest preoccupations they have in Washington. They don't limit land use in Northern Virginia, but that's because they build all of their big McMansions there. They don't limit the land use along the beaches around the Chesapeake and Delaware Bays because that's where all of your government officials set up their retirement communities. So they turn around and they dump all of this on the western states and severely, severely hamper the efforts to turn economies around here and get things really roaring. We've got to understand. The environmentalists have flipped their lids. They did a long time ago. This is not about the environment. This is about control. Number one, they think they're smarter than everyone else. Number two, it's about destroying business and industry because they want to make the government supreme. They want you to put your faith in government instead of God, and they want you to be dependent on government instead of an employer, a private employer. And we're seeing it from so many different directions. The assault in just the last 2 weeks by the left when it comes to the so-called rising sea levels and the ice melt has gotten to the point it's almost laughable, because you know why they're doing it. A couple of weeks ago, there was a study that came out and said sea levels had actually dropped. Well, they couldn't have that. Now they're trying to claim they're ignoring that evidence, and they're saying, yes, but if the following things happen, if these following conditions are met, then sea level is going to wipe out. There was a map, interactive map I happened to see over the weekend, and it said if sea level rises 3 feet, these following counties will be uninhabitable or underwater in just about every coastal county in the United States. And some inland counties, too, as well. Washington State's going to lose a lot of things along the Snake River, according to this map. And then it's like, and the worst case scenario, if the water rises 6 feet, I don't know, buy a houseboat for crying out loud. And, take up spearfishing. You've got lots of alternatives. But we keep hearing all of the, and this will happen by the year 2100 unless we completely shut down every factory on the planet and starve out 5 billion people, which seems to be their goal. Now, what's really galling them is in this election year, this is not getting a whole lot of attention. Bernie Sanders, the most leftist of all the candidates, keeps saying, no, we need more factories. He'd be willing to bring smokestacks back because it would put people to work. And Lefty just cannot have that. And Hillary Clinton doesn't care because all of her big donors, they laugh at all of this too. Oh, they all speak a good game about, yes, we need to have some controls. They really want profit. And right now, this whole global warming thing is getting in the way of making profit. And the people, the profiteers, are backing up Hillary Clinton, propping up her campaign. So no Democrats are bringing this up. This is the last gasp of the environmental wacko left. 8:15, Bill Colley with you on Top Story. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Well, Bill, I hope I'm not repeating myself, but sometimes this stuff bears repeating. The governor of Washington, Jay Inslee, believes in global warming, and he is literally, in some respects, is working with the EPA to do an ad campaign in Seattle to discount or to smear all the farmers and ranchers and dairymen that are upstream, so to speak, and all the water that drains into the Puget Sound. They're running ads on the buses saying these people are, poisoning the water. And you say to yourself, if you've ever actually been out on a farm and a ranch and a dairy, these people love what they do and they love the land. And it's such a crock. But you see, when the urban centers are electing people like him, and Eastern Oregon and Washington want free of it, it's such a travesty. And so,
well, I think it's a complete waste of money too. I mean, he's preaching to the choir because most of the leftist loonies living in the Seattle area, they already believe all of this, and they think when they go get a quart of milk, probably they're all drinking almond milk, but they think when they go get a quart of milk, it comes from the back of the store.
I know and they're so uninformed, and they have no logical, argument. But it doesn't matter. But you see, somehow again, we have to continue fighting this battle. Hey, thanks, Bill. See ya.
Thank you much for the call. Yeah, the hemp clothing, granola chomping, Volvo driving crowd in Seattle to try to sit there and advertise and tell them, oh, this is it. They already believe it. So Jay Inslee and all of his cronies have wasted their money at this point. On the other hand, it just will reinforce what those people believe. And because they have the population numbers in Washington state, they will go out and crush the farmers, as they've been trying to do now for decades. Speaking of the environmental left and its claims of the end of the world and the sky is falling, Stephen Moore writing at Washington Times today, as a nation, the U.S. reduced its carbon emissions by 2% last year. Over the past 14 years, carbon emissions are down more than 10%. On a per unit of GDP basis, that's gross domestic product, U.S. carbon emissions are down closer to 20%. Even more stunning, we've reduced our carbon emissions more than virtually any other nation in the world, including most of Europe. And he includes a chart. How can this be? We never ratified the Kyoto Treaty. We never adopted a cap and trade system or a carbon tax. So many of the sanctimonious Europeans have done all of these things. And he goes on to say, thanks to fracking, to the horizontal drilling technologies, we are producing more natural gas than ever before. It's a wonderful fuel, cheap, abundant. America has more of it than anyone else. We have several hundred years' worth of natural gas, and it's clean burning. Even Nancy Pelosi inadvertently admitted this several years ago before someone had to whisper in her ear that, natural gas is a fossil fuel. And as long as I'm on that subject from the Daily Caller today, stick this one in your craw, liberals. Hydraulic fracturing or fracking has no impact on property values, according to a study published last week by ballotpedia.org, a web encyclopedia which tracks legislation and elections. When it comes to the proximity of active oil or gas wells, there is no definitive evidence that fracking impacted home values. Some homes closer to the wells in 4 counties had lower sale prices and values, while in 2 counties they had higher sale prices and values. Gosh, you can hear the leftists out there right now screaming, no! We've got evidence. No. It's just got to be galling them to no end. Rich Wills, state representative, scheduled to join us in just a few minutes right here on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. I do want to tell you, though, about our friends at Dream Room Design. Speaking of environmental issues, they'll build you a controlled environment. They can build you a sunroom. They can enclose an existing porch, deck, or patio. They can use a combination of metal and glass or just plain metal for the roof. They can give you lots of windows with screens, so you can enjoy the breeze while you're sitting out there, but you can close those windows, protect yourself from blowing and drifting sand and dirt and the like, and of course it keeps you protected from mosquitoes. If you need to see some testimonials and you need to see some of the handiwork, some of the customized work, we recommend dreamroomdesign.com. Go to that website. That's dreamroomdesign.com. This is a business now. It's in its second century, almost 17 years old. dreamroomdesign.com. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Hey, it's 50, on our way to 65 or so today. 20 minutes after 8 o'clock. Plenty more just ahead.